Hi, Scott. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Wesley?
I'm doing just fine. We've got a Ramblers episode today that I think Erica would have enjoyed, but she's not here. She may be able to join before we're we're finished, so hopefully she will. Certainly for the main segment. Have any life things you want to share with us today?
Not that I can think of.
You were just telling me about a tuna sandwich you had.
Yes, I had some tuna in a sandwich, and it has not agreed with me.
And then I shared with you my love of tuna melts, which I have not had one in years. Maybe I'll come out and see if there's a banh mi place that serves a tuna melt version.
I've never been fond of mixing dairy with fish.
Well, I get that instinct. Cheese, to me, is an exception to most dairy rules, though. You
No,
kind
that's
of
fair
melt
enough.
cheese over everything, I feel like. Of course, my opinion, completely uninformed. I know neither about the biology of eating or the gastronomy. I know nothing about it. I just eat.
That's probably why I'm diabetic. I didn't think about what I was eating. I was just like, well, this just tastes good. I'm going to keep eating that.
Right, fair enough.
Turns out it was all sugar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it turns out it's all sugar could be said of a lot of things. Scott, the other thing you were telling me about this morning was that we have a friend from high school, and I know it's actually true of more than one of our friends from high school because we grew up in rural North Georgia, or at least outside the city, North Georgia.
Right. Yeah.
As they have turned to Trumpism, they have what I would call they have been deranged by Trump.
So it would seem the last time I spoke with this gentleman, he was a big Trumper, and that's when I decided to remove him from my social media consumption.
Defriend?
No, I think I may still technically be friends with him. I just don't see his posts and that kind of thing. So.
Oh, I see. Yeah. It is nuts. I've heard Trump derangement syndrome used many times, and I mean, I guess I'm not with the up with the liberal crowd in the U.S. because I heard it and I thought, yes, exactly, that is correct. We have all been deranged by Trump. Absolutely, the people who follow him have, and the people who are against him have. It's not that it's deranged. That's not what they mean when they say it. I know.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it seems to describe it perfectly for me. He has deranged the entire country. The people who, follow him for many reasons we can get into have been deranged by him. The left has as well. And not that it's deranged to be against him, but don't you feel like you're losing your mind every time you turn on the news and know exactly what's going to be on it? It's going to be some crazy ass shit that he has done that may or may not kill us all.
Yes, and that's there much more prominently this term than it was even in the last term.
I said that before. I knew that was going to happen. I said when we got to the end of 2019 and we only had 1 year left, I remember specifically thinking, he's only got 1 year left. I know he hasn't been great, but we have really dodged a bullet because he could have been a lot worse. And then he came back and he was a lot worse.
Yeah. Because I think part of it was he was still trying to run for re-election, obviously. And the other part was I think he was maybe trying to figure out some of the new bells and whistles of his position and what he could get away with and what he couldn't and how. And he certainly at least seems to be addressing some more of those in this term, but I don't know how successfully. He's still not really been able to circumvent a lot of the judiciary branch's ability to halt things. He hasn't gone full Andrew Jackson. If the Supreme Court wants to stop me, they can come over here with their army and make me. He hasn't gone that far. I'm a little pleasantly surprised by that. But
Scott, are you ready to talk about the news, the headlines today?
Sure.
All right, let's get to the news. All right, Scott. This is our rapid fire segment. So just give me the headline and like a brief synopsis of each story that you see or feel is interesting. You want to go first?
No, why don't you go first?
All right. Today's, I always pull from the South China Morning Post. I reserve the right to make switch outs on certain episodes, but this is my favorite newspaper, English newspaper in the region. Kenneth Rogoff on why China's yuan will be a reserve currency within 5 years. Harvard economist explains why cryptocurrencies will never take the US dollar's place, despite their popularity in underground economies. But apparently he believes that the yuan will become a reserve currency. And I think we're already seeing that happen.
I believe we are.
Mm-hmm. All right, what's your first one?
My first one is that the President of the United States issued an executive order or directive or one of those to pay TSA officers late this week so that they may begin being paid again after I think about 6 weeks of not being paid due to government gridlock in the Congress overpaying them, because the Democrats, of course, wanted to fund them and Coast Guard, etc., parts of the Department of Homeland Security, but did not want to fund ICE without meaningful changes. So they have been at loggerheads with the Republicans about that. The president has also signaled that he does not, or in the past week, does not want to pass any real legislation on it without tying his SAVE Act on voting changes to the legislation. So again, this is a temporary fix. Apparently, both Congress and the Senate have recently passed their own versions of trying to get this funding through, but then they both went on spring break, Easter vacation. So, as you know, both houses have to pass a bill that agrees and is kind of the same, and since they both have different bills, it's not possible. But they're getting paid for now.
Where are you getting your news from?
ABC News.
Okay, just want to cite the source.
Oh, sorry. ABC News and just my own memory.
Oh, yeah, when you reference things that have been happening recently, sure. Sounds illegal. I don't think... I think the only thing Congress has is the purse. They hold the purse strings. It seems strange that the government or that the president can sign an executive order that says, I'm going to pay these guys without a bill passed. But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
I think it's some shell game with moving funds that he has been congressionally allotted from one place to another.
Well, he's certainly been allotted a lot for ICE. You would think he could pull it from there. All right, yes, next one.
That's part of it. ICE has already been funded through other means. I don't really understand what the hang up is here, but they are getting paid currently. I don't know all the numbers and stuff, but anyway, go ahead, please.
This one's a Middle Eastern story. Netanyahu says Israel will widen its invasion of southern Lebanon. That's not good. The prime minister said Israel would expand what he called the existing security strip in Lebanon as Israeli forces continue to target Hezbollah. I guess he feels the war is going so well he should expand it.
I suppose. I did hear that they blew up some bridges linking what I'm assuming is the rest of Lebanon with southern Lebanon, I believe, this week as part of that preparation for continued invasion.
Yeah. He's getting what he's wanted for years. All right, your next one.
My next one is the No Kings March. March is here not only in America, but internationally. But here in the U.S., the estimates are that these occurred, at least in all 50 states, and that they drew an estimated 8 million people out into the streets to protest rising authoritarian regulations by the current government.
Oh, that was certainly a big story. It was international, and I mean the picture. I don't know if you've looked at the pictures. Maybe you're looking at them right now.
I've seen some of the pictures. It's pretty amazing to see blocks and blocks of streets in these large cities just dark with people, packed full.
Yeah, absolutely, massive.
Even in places, I mean, cities are going to be blue, even in red states like here in Georgia. But it's still kind of amazing to see big cities in red states also having these large turnouts.
It's encouraging, but I'm not sure how far we should take the encouragement. All right, next one, military. Quieter, stealthier, further, new hybrid unit to power China's small battle drones. Developers have come up with a propulsion system that combines the best of two worlds, according to state media. I feel like I have to click on this one. A hybrid propulsion system designed to make small battlefield drones stealthier and go further has passed in flight tests. The system's motor is driven by fuel-powered electricity, combining two systems to make the best of both, according to the report on Friday.
Interesting.
So China has improved its drones.
And we've certainly seen in these large conflicts the last few years in Ukraine and now here in Iran and the area, how big a part drone warfare is playing in modern combat.
I assumed it would. They'd been working on them for so long, and we hadn't seen them use them in a full-scale war until now. But yeah, I think that was going to be more prevalent. As far as numbers, there's far more of them out there than there are real jets. I wonder, I'd like to hear like a military analysis of the future role of manned jets. Like, are we still going to need them at all in the future, or do they still have some big advantage?
I think currently what you're seeing with, piloted jets, is the size like you're talking about. They're going to be able to go even farther because of fuel capacity. They're going to be able to mount heavier guns, bigger bombs, bigger missiles. Large planes, of course, are going to be used for transporting cargo, supplies, people. So sure. I think those will still exist. Now, whether they will be flown by actual humans, we'll see.
All right, next story.
My next story is that a record number of Republicans are retiring from Congress ahead of the midterms. They are not seeking re-election. They are moving on to greener, or at least less legally fraught, pastures.
Yeah.
They seem to be jumping ship a little bit. They seem to be worried about their legal exposure with a lot of this because there won't be someone to grant them a pardon in there forever. And it's not as if President Trump has just given out pardons completely willy-nilly during his time.
Like
he's given out a heck of a lot to a lot of undeserving people, but he will definitely hold it over your head if he can get something out of it. There's a reason Ghislaine Maxwell has not been issued a pardon.
Right. Yeah. Okay, hundreds flee as fire rips through German nightclub. I didn't hear about this one. This is new to me. 3 people were injured in a fire in Kells, southwestern Germany. Authorities said most of the building will have to be torn down. Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it always worries me when I see fire in nightclub because, that can result in many deaths, but only 3 people injured. That's actually pretty good.
I'm very relieved that you didn't report any deaths in that. And as a sort of side note for burning buildings, I'm not sure if you heard about this, Wesley, but the old courthouse in Rome, Georgia, one of the larger towns near where Wesley and I grew up, burned, I believe last week.
I'm sorry, I did not catch what burned down. The old what?
The old courthouse, the old historic courthouse in Rome.
Oh, that's unfortunate. It burned all the way down? Is it destroyed or?
And the brick walls are still standing. Apparently the first floor, from what I understand, has not been terribly damaged. But you can definitely, like the top 3 floors, and they had sort of a steeple-like area on it. It's not a church, obviously, but it was a steeple that it's just burnt up. Like you can see the walls. It looks like a war zone in the top 2 floors. It's just all brick and rubble. So if you have any memory of that building, it's one of those you'd probably recognize if you saw a picture of it.
Yeah, maybe I'd recognize it if I saw a picture, but I do not particularly have an image of it in my head, so I don't. But historic building, sad. That's bad. Is that your final story?
It is.
All right. Well, are you ready to get into our deep dive today?
Sure.
It's a Trump episode. All right, let's go ahead and get into it.
Time for our derangement syndrome.
All right, Scott. I pulled up 3 stories. They're basically the same stories, but different sources, and it's something that people have been talking about for some time. But I'll start by asking you, would you like for Donald Trump to die? Pointed question, I know.
I was raised and do believe that is not the best way of thinking, to wish harm of any sort on others. But in this case, I have regrettably come to a point where, yes, the answer is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Now, well, I'm not gonna help him in any way get to meeting the Reaper. Let's not put that out there. I'm not encouraging anybody to help him meet the Reaper, but
right.
If he comes,
we should make that distinction for sure.
We should, in case anyone at an investigative agency is listening to this.
Podcast. Well, you're right. Yeah. And I had to be clear on mine too. I wasn't really raised with much moral. My parents were not, moral philosophers in any capacity, so I wasn't taught anything along those lines. However, I have come to those conclusions as an adult, and considered myself these issues. And I do think we'll talk about that later. There's definitely a moral issue here, but on the issue of honestly saying, would I like for him to pass? Yes, I would. I think the world is better off without him. I do not say that about many people. I don't scream that at people, in the grocery store checkout line. I really don't. But with this guy, he's causing so much death and destruction, and it is just clear that he's not going to change. So, a nice coronary would be just terrific as far as I'm concerned. That doesn't mean I think it's something someone should go out and try and do. I'm not encouraging anyone to do it. I'm just saying the world would be better off without him. And I think there's a lot of people that agree, and that's really where this episode came from, or this thought came from, especially from social media. You just see it constantly. Why doesn't this guy die? I wish he would die. Please die. Why don't you just die? All over posts, all over the place. And it got me to thinking about several ways, not just about him keeling over dead, but also about stuff like the 25th Amendment, removing him because he's just not capable. Now, we're not lawyers, so we're not going to evaluate what would be legally required or whether it could be done. I'm more here to think about and talk about, or I think that for us, the more important thing is what happens the day after. Let's say he did just upchuck and die.
Right.
What happens the next day?
J.D. Vance becomes president.
Yeah, exactly. Is this a better outcome? It's arguable. I think it would be better. I don't think it would be good.
I really don't know. I think it would be the same people pulling the strings, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist about this, but I really do think this time there are a lot of people who realize we can manipulate Trump very easily just by stroking his ego and giving him an award, telling him he's done great, or being the last person he talked to.
That's another one makes it easy.
Or bringing him something from McDonald's. Mm-hmm. I think there are a lot of people who realize that and are using that. I know that was said a lot about Joe Biden, especially. It was said about Ronald Reagan, who, as it turned out, was ill towards the end of his term. But I think in this case, there's a high likelihood that he's being manipulated by people around him to do things, or people even internationally like Putin. And I think J.D. Vance would be just as easily manipulated but for different reasons.
Do you really? Do you think he would be as easy to manipulate?
I think he is spineless.
I think he's spineless, but he's not in a position of power right now.
Right now, but if he becomes president, then he is. He's spineless. He's self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
He's all the things in a way that Trump is that allows him to be that way. I don't know if he's as egomaniacal. I don't know if he's one of these, burn it all down if I can't have it types, as we've seen Trump sort of be. But,
Well, my thought is that, every politician has their influence, points, their groups and individuals that kind of guide them on what they want. And the obvious one there is your campaign contributors.
Yep. Lobbyists, people giving you money.
Sure. And that's a lot of who is guiding Trump right now. And those people would be the same. But I don't know that they, like, we have the same worries about the FSB being the ones that are pulling the strings. Netanyahu, Israel, that's been the case for many, many years. He just happens to have somebody in office now that's willing to go to war. But then again, maybe that's where what you said about Vance being spineless. Maybe he would offer no more resistance to Netanyahu than Trump does. I don't know. I hate to use this phrase, but because it always comes back to bite you in the ass, but it's hard to imagine how it could be worse. As bad as I think Vance would be, I don't think he would be as bad as Trump. I'm going to tell you where I'm getting a lot of our news, or a little bit of our stories from. The International Bar Association has their own articles on their website. This one was written by William Roberts. And every time they write William Roberts, IBA, I think it's irritable bowel syndrome, even though that's not the right letters. It's just the first thing that I'm like, is that something like irritable bowel syndrome? Anyway, this is a lawyers' organization. It's bringing up the same thing about the 25th Amendment. Of course, there's no way to know whether he could be 25th, as they say. This is about his UN speech. Let's see if I can get a date on it. This was December of last year. It seems like a million years ago in Trump years, but it was in December. While his UN speech raised eyebrows, President Trump's subsequent address to 800 top U.S. military leaders at a Marine Corps base in Virginia set off alarm bells. Do you remember this?
Vaguely. Yes, because like you say, it's I feel like I'm aging in dog years during the Trump administration. So vaguely, I know not really. I don't remember the specifics. No, there's been so much.
Okay, so he delivered an address, and I mean, I'm sure it was a big news when he wrote this article.
Probably.
But it was big enough to make this law organization talk about, the 25th Amendment. So he delivered a partisan message that warned of vicious enemies inside the U.S. He mused that major American cities were being used as training grounds for the U.S. military. Were being used. He mused about major American cities being used as training grounds for the U.S. military, and said the country was under invasion from within. These are his political opponents he's talking about.
Right. These are other Americans.
Right, exactly. The people who were protesting against him. We just had was it the third No Kings March?
I believe it was.
That's who he's talking about. He was talking.
These are people who are exercising their constitutionally given rights, not doing anything seditious or treasonous.
Right, exactly. So there's also health concerns with him. Do you want to mention any of the health concerns? Have you noticed any? Seen any in the news?
I'm always skeptical of when doctors, even experts, look at a president or a presidential candidate or a famous person even from afar and say, I know what they have. I know what's wrong with them. It's like, no, you don't.
Right. That's not how medicine. I'm not a doctor, but I know that's not how medicine works. You got to be examined by a doctor.
Right. So I'm always skeptical. That said, their opinion does carry just slightly bit more weight than just, like me guessing. It's like, what's wrong with his hand? Heck, I don't know.
Right, exactly. Like this is one people have brought up, and now it's the hand and the foot. His ankle is now swollen to gigantic size.
Well, he's also had to wear braces on his lower legs, at least at certain points.
Is that right?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
When we're talking about the 25th Amendment, I mean, I remember all these coming up, but when we're talking about the 25th Amendment, this is about things that would impair you mentally. None of these are mental impairment indications. So I think this is, like you said, this is media this is someone in the media wanting to get, some clicks or some views on their channel or something, even if it's a major channel, to just have something to talk about on air. It doesn't even imply something that would be, something he could be removed for. And then the other thing is that he's falling asleep.
That's a concern.
It's a small one. It could have something to do with psychology, I suppose. They say it could be early signs of dementia, which he does also have incoherent speech and memory lapses. But I gotta say, again, I'm not the doctor, but I don't think any of these are smoking guns. Or is it?
There is expectation that a presidential candidate or someone seeking office should disclose their health to the public in the interest of the public. Mm-hmm. And it's like they should know that you're healthy, that they're not electing somebody who's going to be too sick to do the job or need to be replaced soon or something like that, which is kind of understandable. At the same time, I think that's been blown way out of proportion. And I think maybe this is just me being raised kind of in the foothills of Appalachia here, but maybe it ain't your damn business what I got.
Well, I mean, I don't think I could say that for president. That is our business. His health is very important. But at the same time, and I felt this with Joe Biden too, it may get to a point where he does need to be removed. I'm not suggesting it.
I think, well, I'm talking reasonable. More mental, like you were sort of getting to, which is the mental side of it is not what I'm talking about there. I'm talking more like the physical. Like if he had, if DR had polio and had to use a wheelchair, it's like, well, so what?
Right. It doesn't actually affect his ability to do the job, so it's not something that's relevant to whether or not he can remain in it. Right. I was going to also say, for him and Biden both, for all the whining and complaining that's been done on both sides about age, Americans knew this. Their age was not a secret. Their age was not, unknown to the public. That's what we voted for. So I don't think you can just throw age up there and be like, oh, see, he's old. Well, so we got to take him out. The public knew that when they voted.
Yeah, and they also, it was brought up during this last campaign with both of them.
It was. That's right.
So it was even used by Kamala Harris when she took over as the Democratic nominee and say, look, I'm much younger.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Which I agreed with. I thought that, this is important because, I don't like ageism, but at the same time, there is a point in life where, you probably shouldn't expect to be able to perform the same as you did when you were in your 40s, 50s, or even 60s. This guy's pushing 80, but the public knew it, and they voted.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I think.
It's not even. Well, it's not even a matter of.
Be a disconnect.
Opinion on part of that. In that, yes, you cannot do the same things later in life that you could earlier in life. I mean, that's just known. Mm-hmm. The problem is it's different for everybody, and it's a fuzzy sliding scale. I mean, look at somebody like, I don't know, William Shatner, who's 90 and still seems to have all of his marbles and still seems to be pretty put together. And then you look at somebody like, can be in their 60s and just be completely lost, unfortunately, to dementia or what we consider, old age diseases or whatever. It's hard to quantify, and therefore it's easy to argue that no, they're fine. You're just being ageist, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why we're supposed to have doctors make this evaluation. And he has taken several cognitive tests, although I don't know if that's exactly the test you would take for old age, but it's so hilarious when he brags about taking those cognitive tests, like it was taking them as an accomplishment. I'm like, well, first off, you're not telling me what the results are. And second, they're not giving those tests because they think everything's going great, but he's so delusional.
Right.
Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about, Scott, and I hope you'll bear with me, is the moral side of this. Are you ready to dive into that?
Yep. Let's go.
Maybe it's ethical. All right, Scott. We are moving on to our next little topic here, and that is not what I indicated to you before. My apologies. I'll try to edit it so that I don't look like an idiot. But we are going to talk about something that I just wrote The Great Rupture. So we just 1 year ago, 1+ year ago, maybe it's more like a year and a half, just voted in this guy, and he did win the popular vote, and he won the Electoral College. And we knew all the things we were just talking about. We knew his age, we knew his positions, we knew what he wanted to do. It was all very clear. As much as this guy can lie about the weather, he didn't really lie about who he was. He's made pretty clear what kind of a person he is the whole time he's been in office.
He had a record at that point.
And he had a record, right? Exactly.
Literally.
No one can claim that. Yeah, he was a convicted felon at that point. So I don't know. Most of the Epstein stuff was known by then as well. As much as it's being played up now, it's like, oh, who knew this was happening? No, this wasn't new information.
No, I don't think there was as much information out there, but it was known that this was something to take seriously. Yes.
Right. Well, Epstein was convicted of his crimes over a decade ago, if I'm not mistaken.
And he was, quote unquote, committed suicide in jail during Trump's first term.
Right. So like all of this was out there. Even a fraction of what Trump has been associated with would have just killed any other politician dead in their tracks, their career. I mean, years ago. So, and the public knew it, and they looked at it and they said, yep, that's still the guy we want in. So they put him in office. Now, well before a year he was in office, people are calling for him to be removed by the 25th Amendment. They're saying, oh, why can't he just die? Let's get rid of this guy. His approval ratings are down to, I think 36% was last time I looked in the polls. Lowest, I'm pretty sure that's the lowest of any president. They always throw out some statistic about how awful the approval ratings are. And of course they are. He's already one of the most popular. My question in the back of my head that all of this is based on is democracy working anymore? Is it rational to think that a system like ours can continue to exist in the future? The amount of damage this guy can do, and the public doesn't want him in office anymore. Apparently, I mean, these aren't votes, but these are polls, probably accurate. He's got 3 more years left to continue doing exactly the same or maybe even more damage for 3 more years before he will legally have to step down. And we don't know that he's going to do it then. He's already talked about using American cities as training grounds for his troops. He's built up his own personal internal army. I don't know that he's going to leave that building even when his term is up.
There's still idle chatter from him and some of his allies about a 3rd term somehow.
Mm-hmm. Which caused the internet to suggest Barack Obama run again.
Oh yeah, that's not what they're going for. They more for me, not for thee.
Let's see here. So internally, I guess the question is democracy broken? Is our version of democracy broken? I can't accept the idea that this is exactly how it's supposed to go and there's nothing to worry about. I think we should be worried about what's going on, what's happening right now, and worried long term, not just like even if we did get rid of Trump. This was based on, if Trump goes away, what happens? Well, we still have the process that put him in office. Do we want to keep that?
I think to answer your first concern here, is this the way it's supposed to work? I think the answer is no. I don't even think this was the way, not that their opinion is deified as some people make it out to be, at least to me, the founding fathers wanted. They didn't want a lot of the large names didn't want political parties. They didn't want a Christian nationalist nation. Jefferson talked about how, the separation of church and state. Or any religion, but of course Christianity is what we're seeing now.
At the time as well.
They didn't want the U.S. to be isolationist either, I don't think, completely. But they also didn't want us meddling in everything, I believe. As far as the race, ethnic aspect, I'm going to say that probably not as enlightened as we would hope it would have been. Considering Well, considering that even the people who were anti-slavery at that time, and there were a fair few, it's not like it popped up right before the Civil War or anything. There were a fair few that they didn't push hard enough for it. I mean, they kept it. And it's like, oh, well, it was a compromise. Maybe you shouldn't have compromised on that. But
Right.
my point being, a lot of the things that were intended have not been followed through on both legally and sort of as a vision. I mean, I had heard that the founders wanted the Constitution almost completely rewritten every so often. They thought it should be hard to change, but it should be changed. I don't know that direct democracy is the answer either, because that, again, would put us where we are now, I think. A demagogue like Trump would get enough support to win a simple majority, even a plurality, perhaps, in some cases.
So a lot of people, maybe I shouldn't say a lot of people. I'm gonna name who's saying this. This idea comes from Yanis Varoufakis, and I hope I'm saying his name right. He's Greek, and so I can't pretend to have skills in pronouncing that name. But this guy's great. I love him. I love to hear from him. Occasionally he'll pop up on the internet, and you'll see a lot of
come on our show.
Come on our show. Sure, absolutely. I believe he got famous because he was in the Greek. Perhaps I should look him up before I tell you that. But I'll tell you what he's saying that's of interest to me. He's calling our future techno-feudalism. He says we're not capitalist anymore, that we're in a system of cloud fiefs. Is it fiefs?
I believe it's fiefs.
Fiefs, thank you. Where we are not just consumers, we're serfs. We're the serfs in that system, producing data for digital lords. So if the U.S. government, which is the lord of the global reserve currency and the protector of these cloud fiefs, decides to burn the table, it's not a market correction. It's a feudal decree that ruins the serfs. I guess what I'm saying is there's a shift in power where we think of governments as being the most powerful things on the planet. This has been recognized for a long time, but through their control of data, these big companies are changing the environment we live in. One of the things that has protected China from the damages wrought by the West is the fact that they block the internet. They don't let Chinese information be collected by Western companies. They block those websites. That's called the Great Firewall of China, and it has been roundly decried in the West, decried in the West, or at least in the United States, as an assault on freedom. But what's actually happening is that Western companies are not collecting data on Chinese citizens. The more we move forward, the more we see how much more important that is than we originally thought. And I'll admit too, like up until just a few years ago, I wasn't really worried about data collection. I didn't particularly like it, but it didn't sit in the forefront of my mind. I now think about it a lot more because these companies are using that data, and in my opinion, they're using it against us, bringing their level of power up over that of governments. And I used to think, sure, they're more powerful than small countries because they have more money, but it's not just about money. The money actually isn't the issue. The United States has a ton of money government has a ton of money at its disposal, but it's under the control of whoever puts the money into the political system.
Right.
So it's the United States is not a power source in and of itself. It's just an instrument used by power. What do you think on that?
I think the merchant class is certainly, I think I'll go ahead and classify it that way. The merchant class has been a very prominent force in politics and even shaping government in very big ways since the Renaissance, really. I mean, if you look at the rise of the mercantile class in Europe, how much the securing and expenditure of money for things like armies funded things like the Crusades and the wars against your neighbors in Europe and et cetera, et cetera. And that started coming from the rising middle class, as we call it now. And so I think it has been a big part of our, at least Western shaping Western history. And of course, you can say, well, that also has shaped Eastern history because in search of new markets or colonial people, colonies to exploit, Western people have gone east and interacted with folks and, again, influenced them greatly. I mean, name a place on that side of the world, there probably has been some kind of shenanigans done by European powers, and that's been in the interest of money.
Right, sure.
There was a line, I don't particularly like the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie too much, but there was a line in there that, I mean, you find these little pearls amongst the swine. One of the characters said, loyalty is the currency of the British Empire. And one of the more evil ones said currency is now the currency of the British Empire. And that's the difference, I think, is it's all about the Benjamins, baby.
Yeah, I knew we were going to end up talking about dead presidents today.
Oh.
Are you ready? Benjamin Franklin was not a president, though, so it didn't exactly work out. But that's all right. Are you ready to talk about something a little lighter, fluffier?
Are we down to that? Is it time?
It's time.
All right. I didn't know if I answered your question well enough or what, but
you did.
Very good.
It's just fine. All we had time for anyway. And in our last little segment today, we've spent some time talking about the existence of the existential dread of the real presidency. Now we're going to talk about fictional presidencies. Who would you actually want to have a beer with? I always thought that was the stupidest way to determine who's going to be president. You could sit down and have a beer with him. You could, but then he wouldn't be able to run the country because you just got him drunk.
Well, yeah, and I don't know that I want any of my good old pals running the government. I'd like somebody smarter than us, please.
Smarter than me, for sure. Yeah. There's been a massive shift in how Hollywood portrays the president. In the 90s, it was like Harrison Ford or Martin Sheen. Either action heroes or these moral giants. By the 2010s, it was Julia Louis-Dreyfus or like Kevin Spacey. I never watched those shows. Were they elected president in those shows or just trying to become president? Did you watch either one of those shows? Julia
Louis-Dreyfus was vice president, I believe. She was in Veep, if that's what you're talking about.
Right.
I think she was vice president. I believe Kevin Spacey was elected president towards the end of that series, and then something happened in real life that meant he was no longer wanted around, and they shifted it. I don't remember.
Wasn't he convicted of a felony? And we know we would never elect anyone convicted of a felony as a TV president.
I don't think he was. I don't remember if he was convicted of anything. He was accused credibly of some pretty heinous crap.
Right, yeah. I mean, the same kind of crap that our actual president seems to have done.
Yes.
Which doesn't seem to bother a lot of people. So I guess, was it an HBO show? I guess HBO could have just left him on there.
Might have been Netflix, but...
If you had to vote for... Oh, yeah, it was Netflix, you're right. If you had to vote for one fictional president to handle a real-world crisis like the war in Iran, who would you pick? And a second question, which comedy president is most like what's going on today?
Fictional president? I don't know. The one from Independence Day who gave that great speech at the end. I don't even remember his name. I don't remember much about that movie. It was pretty forgettable.
It was Thomas Whitmore. I assume that was the character's name. Flies a jet fighter against the aliens.
Yeah.
And gets the gold star for a rousing speech. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what his policies were, but I think you were talking about, how you don't understand why people want to say, I want somebody I can have a beer with. I think you want somebody that you feel like is there with you, that isn't trying to get one over on you or rule over you or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of like Richard III, that went out amongst his men and talked to them. Before, was it the third? It went out before Agincourt. It's in the Shakespeare play. I don't remember which Richard number he was, but
that's what you want. That's what you want in a president.
I think that's what a lot of people want. That's why it's packaged that way. And then I don't know that it's so much a loss of confidence in the office that you're seeing these things being pastiched or you're seeing them turn into villains. I think it's more that was the general theme of entertainment during that time. I think we're moving away from it a little more now, but it's always ups and downs. They talk about with Star Wars how part of the reason it hit so big was because it was coming in as something optimistic and hopeful and morally clean compared to movies like Dirty Harry and other morally gray movies of the 70s that revolved around real world morally gray issues that the country was facing, like Vietnam, like Watergate, those kind of things. So you understand where it came from, but people were ready for something different. And I think it swings back and forth.
So I've got the Independence Day president listed as an I'll do it myself president.
Yes.
Do you think of any others that would fall into that category? Movies and TV, I mean.
I don't know.
How about Air Force One? I think I already mentioned that one, maybe.
That was Harrison Ford, right?
That was Harrison Ford, yeah. Punches terrorists, says, "Get off my plane."
Harrison Ford was also the president in that latest Captain America movie where he got turned into the Red Hulk.
That's right. That's the second time he's played president. Yeah, that's definitely an I'll do it myself. But I'm assuming he was the villain in that movie.
He was the antagonist. Yeah, I didn't see it. He was playing a character that was traditionally, at least, an antagonist, a villain for the Hulk.
I always saw the Incredible Hulk comics and TVs and that story as just an updated version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yes, it absolutely is.
So it's strange to me that I think originally Hulk was supposed to be the villain and Banner is the hero. But maybe I'm wrong because certainly it changed. Maybe it started out that way. I didn't read the original comic, but it's certainly a diversion from that original story. I don't think Mr. Hyde in the original story was secretly a hero.
No, but I also think you see as those things get more popular, especially with a target audience that becomes children, which comic books were, of course, aimed at in those days, especially. You see the same thing with like Godzilla.
All right, yeah, that's true. That's true. And Homer Simpson.
Yes, you definitely see that becoming more. The first Godzilla movie was a metaphor for nuclear war and disaster and all that stuff, as has been some of the more recent ones as well. They're pretty serious films. Godzilla -1, the most recent one out of Japan, is very good. It's a very good movie, I would say, not just a very good Godzilla movie.
Right. Yeah, I think you said that before.
Now, if you look at the American ones that are Godzilla movies that are coming out, those are just straight up action movies. Godzilla comes out, beats things up.
Right. So what we like. How about go ahead, sorry.
But what I mean is over the original Showa era of Godzilla films, it became more and more kidified as you went along because that was the target audience. That was who was dragging mom and dad to the theater to see it.
Okay. How about an idealist president, which would be the president I wish would actually get into office?
I would vote for Steve Rogers any second, Captain America. I guess I'd vote for the current Captain America too.
He didn't play the president though.
No, I think there may have been some comic books where he was a senator or something for a while, but no, he's never been. But when I think of American idealism, I think about that character because people talk about how can we really keep doing this with Captain America, with everybody thinking and obviously so much evidence that America itself is so bad, and he represents that. It's like, no, I think he represents the ideal of what America could be, should be, was intended to be, but that is a separate thing from what America actually is and has been.
Sure. Are there any presidents that played the president in movies or TV that I'm thinking like West Wing? I'll just put mine.
Would you like to stick to the topics? Yeah. Martin Sheen, yeah, absolutely. In the West Wing, I've not seen a lot of it, but the stuff I have seen, yeah, I want somebody who has some moral, ethical at this point, legal backbone.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm reluctant to bring a real president into this because I wanted to keep it light, but I mean, Jimmy Carter comes to mind.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a man who was not uber wealthy, although his family did own farms, though he wasn't from poverty, but he was intelligent. He was a nuke in the Navy. And after he left the office, I feel like he lost his reelection bid because he stuck to principles.
That was part of it, yeah.
At least part of it, right? Yeah.
Big part of it.
And then when he left office, he spent the rest of his time literally building houses for homeless people, which I don't know if you know this, is the only actual solution to the problem of homelessness.
Well, he also did some, I think, diplomacy at the request of government officials. But yeah, he was married to the same woman for decades, and apparently didn't cheat or anything like that.
Right.
There's something to be said for that, I think. And also, not to bring religion into it, but if you're looking for somebody that is a good example of being a Christian, of actually doing what Christ wanted his followers to do, that is Jimmy Carter. He is, and it also gets to the only thing that I can never forgive Carter for, because he was a born-again Christian and very open about it. When he was in office, he converted the United States. I don't know if you realize this, but before Carter, it was totally taboo for any religious leader or politician to bring these issues into politics. It was just not done. In fact, there's a story about Nixon that one of the older evangelical leaders of the time wanted to endorse him, and he wouldn't accept the endorsement because it was just not appropriate for religion to be in politics. And after Carter, that changed massively. Well, also,
but I agree that he was the only example that I can think of an actual Christian who believed it and lived by it.
Right, and this is and his wife too. But this was the president, first lady of the United States. I mean, these were people who had every opportunity and he was governor of the state of Georgia before that. Every opportunity, every temptation, one would think, to be corrupt or do horrible things.
Sure.
And by all accounts, I'm sure it happened sometimes. He's a human being, but mostly didn't. And there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Scott, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's time to sign off.
All right. Are we doing a wacky story?
No, we're just going to say goodbye. Sound bits. All right, Scott. We're signing off today. We've had a lovely little discussion. I want to thank anybody who tuned in for tuning into the Ramblers. We rambled a bit. That's what we do. Scott, what do you want to talk about next week?
Well, I think we've touched on this in the last couple of broadcasts here. We've talked on future technology, like you're talking about with the cloud fiefdoms and the cybernetic and AI advancements we're seeing now from, I think, our previous episode. I think we should examine the effects of, or at least discuss the effects of technological advancement on modern warfare, how that affects enlistment, how that affects the need for X number of people in a military force, and where that's kind of going. I mean, I jokingly said I think next week we should talk about Star Wars, but we're developing weapons. Laser weapons are a thing that are being developed, or not. I don't think they're being used currently. Are being developed for use, and they're not going to look like Star Wars. But these are kind of things that are happening. Microwave weapons, these kind of things. I would like to discuss where we think all that's going, the AI aspect of it, the cybernetics aspect of it. That's my suggestion.
All right, so you want to discuss tech in war. Enlistment AI, I'm going to suggest we add to this. You said enlistment, but does technology now mean that the other countries that we may be fighting or invading or whatever we're doing to them, that they are able to fight back with smaller armies? How does it affect budget? this is something that's, could be very expensive to develop, but then Iran shows us, no, we can make a $30,000 drone.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And then their strategy, the other part of it is that they open up, what was it, 15 million or $1 billion worth of trade that Trump is now allowing. So they've got this endless funnel of Shahed drones.
Well, yeah, and look at somebody like Ukraine, how they've been able to stay in the fight against this Goliath that was the Russian army that was going to just wipe them off the face of the earth within a few days. And it's been, I think, 3 years, maybe 4 at this point. It's still up in the air.
I mean, yeah, the latest I've heard is that they're pushing the Russian lines back again now. It's been
again, it's very much still a contest, which is good and it's bad. A lot of people are getting hurt. A lot of people are dying.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that does kind of, how does that relate to also things like insurgency and those, insurgent cells like we saw in Afghanistan, like you're seeing previously with Palestinians who are carrying out terrorist attacks in Israel, and like the Israelis before them were carrying out such terrorist attacks against the British when they were a colony before World War II. Things like that. How does that affect those kind of very small, we'll call them rebel factions?
Okay. All right. It seems like an interesting topic. Barring any world destroying events between now and then, that is what we will talk about.
Well, and that's certainly something that if there is a better topic, somebody comes up with something better, we can push it back. It's not going anywhere.
Well, I mean, when I say, like stuff in the news, like if we invaded another country or something, that would probably take precedence.
Here's looking at you, Cuba.
You're right, exactly. Or Greenland.
Boy.
That's a whole other topic. All right, Scott, thanks for joining me this week.
Glad to be here.
I appreciate it. I'll talk to you again next week.
All right, stay safe out there, everybody.